all my paranormal misfits, and welcome to the Paranormal Misfit podcast. I am your host, Chrissy, and I'm here to talk about all things paranormal and spooky. From experience that I or someone else has had, to the shows, movies, and books, to lores and legends, and to the places known for the paranormal. I'm going to talk about all of it. I myself am a believer with a healthy set of skepticism. You'll hear my thoughts and feelings about different topics revolving around the paranormal, so cozy up with your favorite beverage of choice and listen along. Moving past that, are you guys ready for me to go over McPike Mansion? All right, first let's get into the history. So first things first, we'll give like his kind of like a little bit of a family history background. So James McPike came west to Kentucky in 1797, bringing with him his sons John and Richard. Henry McPike, who you'll learn is the owner of the McPike Mansion, is the son of John McPike and came to Alton as a very young man in 1847. McPike soon became active in the business and political community of Alton, and over the period of years was involved in a number of different companies, working as a real estate agent, a box manufacturer, and an insurance executive, along with other things. He also became president of one of the oldest horticultural society in Illinois. So Henry Guest McPike was a multifaceted spirit. He was a two-time mayor of Alton, Illinois, and a kingmaker in local politics. He dabbled in horticulture, propagating his own variety of grape coveted in winemaking circles. He was also a skilled businessman, and a man with such prominence needed a stately home, and in 1869, McPike commissioned a local architect to build an ornate Italian-style estate on a 15-acre compound in Alton. McPike was said to have adored the property, particularly the grove of trees, before he succumbed to a brief illness in the house in 1910. His political aspirations did not get off to a quick start, however, when he did dabble in politics. Although he did have an interest in the abolitionist movement, his father had been the editor of the Whig newspaper. The Whig Party later became the Republicans in the time of Abraham Lincoln, and was an early advocate of abolishing slavery. Despite this, McPike never sought political office, although it was offered to him many times. During the Civil War, he was called upon as the duty provost marshal of the district and this placed him in a management position in the War Department. After this, he was said to have began acting as a representative in many conventions and with city council. This eventually would lead to his stint as mayor of Alton from 1887 to 1891. Okay. So, the McPike Mansion stands as one of the more elaborate homes in Alton. It contains 16 rooms and a vaulted wine cellar, and was originally built on a country estate of 15 acres that McPike called Mount Lookout. Thanks to McPike's interest in all things horticulture, the estate was planted with rare trees, shrubs, orchards, flowers, and extensive vineyards. The owner became the propagator of the McPike grape, which became known across the country. There is no question that this was one of the most beautiful homes in the area. The McPike family lived at the estate for some time after the death of Henry, but records are unclear about some of the dates. The house has changed hands several times, serving as Brown's Business College, and then a boarding house owned by Paul Lanshinger. I probably said that last name wrong, and I'm not going to try to attempt it again. It was during this time that tenants began to experience strange phenomenons that couldn't be explained. When Paul passed away in 1945, the house soon became vacant, and time got the best of the mansion's once elegant facade. Windows were broken, paint began to peel, and the iron fence rusted. giving it a more menacing look. It was around this time that passerbys began to report seeing faces looming in the windows, and through the late 30s and early 40s, uh, when it was a boarding house, tenants claimed to hear sounds of children playing and laughing, even though there were no children present. Despite some of the inaccuracies, ooh, my foot's falling asleep. Despite the inaccuracies about the dates, the house has since been listed as in the National Register of Historic Places. However, it has been listed on another not so prestigious list. The Landmarks Preservation Council of Illinois listed as 10. The Landmarks Preservation Council of Illinois' list of the 10 most endangered historic places in the state. The years have not been kind to the McPike Mansion, and it has been abandoned and in despair since the 1950s. Since that time, weather and vandals have caused some pretty major damage to the structure. The house once had a number of marble fireplaces and very extravagant woodwork, but all of that was stolen during its time while it was unoccupied. As I said, windows have been broken, plaster's been cracked, destroyed, floors have been deteriorated to the point where they're not safe to walk on, and worse, this place is in desperate need of repair, but the enormous price tag obviously makes it a daunting task. Estimates for their roof alone can reach up to $50,000. But some hope does remain that the McPike Mansion will not become just a memory, as in 1994, Sharon and George Ludek purchased the home at an auction. As of this writing, they're continuing, this is from an article. As of writing this, they are continuing their efforts to restore the home and turn it into a bed and breakfast or a historical attraction. It has been an uphill battle, but they have continued trying to bring attention to the house as the historical site with tours and outings. All right, so here's the thing. Legend has it, his spirit has never left. So for more than a century, local lore has held that the home now known as McPike Mansion is haunted by its original owner. For more than a century, sorry. McPike, however, may not be the only apparition who has seemingly taken residence inside the mansion's walls. Sharon and George, who invested thousands of dollars in renovating the dilapidated house since 1994, believe that there are a dozen spirits who have maintained a presence in and around the home. Among the inhabitants is Henry's mother, Lydia. She is the matriarch of the family, Sharon says. She is a pretty strong presence who likes to be introduced when I bring people into the entranceway. McPike's first wife, Mary, also makes regular appearances. She's kind of shy, but she's a good spirit, Sharon says, and she loves children. There have also been encounters with McPike's son, James, and daughter-in-law, Jenny, who Sharon calls the trickster of the spiritual group. She'll touch people, but not in a harmful way. She might tug on your hair a little bit or maybe even touch your ear. Now, keep in mind, neither Lydia nor Mary lived in the mansion before their deaths, and not all of these supposed spirits are part of the McPike family. Sharon says that she's felt the spirit of a woman named Sarah who is believed to have been a personal attendant of the McPikes. Sharon claims that at least 3 children who may have lived on the property before McPike purchased it still haunts the grounds today. There has been, as I stated, no earthly bodies living in the house since 1954, as it was condemned long ago. But the site has become a popular destination in recent decades for hunters of the paranormal activity. Recently, a photograph captured a dark shadow in a hallway to the cellar. It's pretty obvious, Sharon says. That was Henry. Let's see. So as I said, she purchased it in 1994, and when they began their restorations and everything, the couple hadn't been working long on the house before Sharon had her first unexplainable experience. She was gardening in the front yard when she spied a man in an old-fashioned attire staring down at her from a window. The two locked eyes for a moment before he disappeared. And then after doing some research, research. This is where Sharon found a photo of Paul wearing similar clothing. Now, Paul was the owner of the building in the late 30s, early 40s, while it was a boarding house. The man in the window wouldn't be the only strange occurrence at the McPike Mansion. Visitors would go on to spot strange mists and orbs, and even some appearing in photos. They would feel sensations of being touched, smell of a phantom lilac perfume, thought to be the presence of the former servant Sarah Wells, and hear metal doors scraping across the floor on their own. The wine cellar seems to be an epicenter for paranormal activity. Psychic mediums report feeling a surge of energy in the basement, even sensing the presence of Henry himself. According to the owner, two ghosts haunt this property: former Paul and former domestic servant Sarah Wells. Flashlights will die out unexpectedly, or the lights will flicker. There's like I said, a strong smell of lilac, but this is in the attic. And this is also said to be of Sarah. What is really creepy is how things look in photos. You might see figures or orbs of light in a photo that definitely was not there when you took the picture. Let's see. The structure is on the National Register of Historic Places. It stayed abandoned for quite a while before being purchased, and it would have been restored and converted into a hotel, but it was not eligible for grant money despite proper assurances. Nevertheless, you can visit McPike Mansion and go on a tour of one of the most haunted houses in Illinois. There is also there are also annual campouts held at the mansion. So with Sharon, she definitely believes that the house is haunted. Her unusual encounters at the house carry much more weight given the time that she has spent here than the claims of, trespassers, so-called psychics, or curiosity seekers who come to the house sim- who come to the house simply because it looks haunted. There have been hundreds of stories which have circulated about the mansion, from the chilling downright to the downright silly, but Sharon claims that the ghost of Paul haunts the place seems to be the most credible. He is one of the few spirits who allegedly haunt the place, for which has a real historical connection to it. Sharon says that her first encounter with Paul was while she was gardening. Um, she also notes that whenever she saw him standing in the window, that a chill came over her, and then the man had vanished, and what he was wearing was a striped shirt and tie. Let's see. Um, Another spirit in the house, well, the same spirit that I've talked about earlier, was Sarah. She's a little bit more than a presence with an assumed name until she was little more than a presence with an assumed name until a man came by the house one day and presented Sharon with some books that he had removed from the house 17 years prior to their purchase. One of the books had the name Sarah Wells written inside of it, and since that time, Sharon has been touched, or actually hugged, by the spirit, and she and her husband have occasionally caught the scent of lilac on the third floor. As mentioned, there have been hundreds of stories told about this house, and there are those who claim that the legion of spirits still haunt this place. The main problem with taking these stories too seriously involves the fact that this house was locally regarded as the neighborhood haunted house for years, and was obviously the place where teenagers would like to come hang out and party. Given more recent times, claims of mediums and attention seekers have further muddied the waters, because obviously some people will say something just to kind of get that attention. While the entire group, so there was a guy, he did a ghost tour, I guess, or a tour of the house. I shouldn't say ghost tour, but a tour of the house. So this is from his experience. While the entire group was gathered in the wine cellar of the house, a step down below the basement, One of the group members became uncomfortable in the small enclosed space and asked to go upstairs. She was accompanied upstairs by another woman who was present. Soon, the group in the cellar was waiting patiently for her to return. After a few moments, the sound of the second woman's footsteps could be heard descending the steps, descending the basement stairs, and then crossing the basement floor. The steps were followed by a short pause, and then a metal door to the wine cellar opened, scraping across the stone floor as it did so. The only problem, though, was that no one was there. Both of the women who had left were still upstairs, and no one had came down the steps. The entire strange incident, which I did watch, was captured on videotape, and I will link the website that I found it on down below. Now, what I did find is that there were two paranormal shows. One was Ghost Lab, and then the other one was obviously the Scooby-Doo Gang Ghost Adventures. And I'm going to go over each episode with their experiences of what happened in the mansion. So, Ghost Lab does an episode on season 1, episode 13, called If These Walls Could Talk. Now, the thing about Ghost Lab is they usually do 2 haunted locations in one episode. So you get like half an hour of one, half an hour of the other. Now, this was filmed back in 2009, and the Kling brothers are the main drivers of the show. Some evidence they give are sounds upstairs in a room, shuffling, or something being slid across the floor, which, to be fair, the floor was in really bad disarray. And then there's also an EVP saying such a jerk, which I'm not really sure if that's accurate for the time period of the 1800s. Now, if they're talking about like maybe Paul, someone who was from the 30s and 40s, maybe. I'm not really sure. I'm not entirely, well versed in that. There are 2 crypts on the property said to be of Henry's young children who are rumored to be buried on the property. Now, the crypts have not been identified because they're in a really bad state. In the cellar, the temperature does some drastic jumps where it goes from like 92 to 59, 55 or whatnot. But what I do like about the Ghost Lab is that they don't usually immediately jump to this proves that there's a spirit here. This proves all they do is this is an anomaly. It's inconclusive, but we can't rule out. So I do like that. But let's see. They do rule inconclusive on the drastic temperature changes, but they do catch an EVP stating, "Oh my gosh," and out. Back by the gravestones, they send one of their techs, Katie, to try and capture some evidence, in which she tries in a respectful manner. She has what's considered an EVP, which sounds like babbling or maybe something between 2 kids, given the age of like being very young, like almost toddler age. And given the historical factor that his 2 children that did pass away on the property were very young, I mean, maybe. Now, as far as the Kling brothers themselves, the tactics that they use to investigate, I'm not very big on. I don't really like the whole provoking. So the building does have some iffy spots where if there's too many people, and this was during this time, if there's too many people or too much movement, you could definitely go through the floors. The second floor has a master bedroom, which is rumored to believe where Mr. Pike had died. He had 3 wives, 7 kids, and a very iffy divorce. This is where it says stated that a male shadow figure could be seen from the window. Ooh, not window. The cellar has activity where you can see, obviously, Mr. Henry's old shadow. This is some of the rumors that they were given, or some of the information, I shouldn't say rumors, some of the information they were given prior to investigating, feeling touched or pulled. The house is sitting on limestone, which causes paranormal activity as believed by the community itself, like the paranormal community. The Kling brothers are known for heavy provoking, which obviously I as I stated is not my favorite tactic. I feel it's disrespectful and honestly uncalled for. Like, why should we provoke because we want to see something, it really does scream entitlement to me. I don't see how provoking someone and calling them, and this was stated in the TV show, I really don't see how provoking someone and calling them a cheat would provoke that spirit to come and make themselves known. I don't see how that is something that would help in getting evidence in a paranormal investigation. Um, Honestly, kind of asking to be knocked down some stairs, some very iffy stairs, some very iffy floor. It's like, sir, are you trying to fuck yourself up? Asking child spirits if they were treated badly, like being abused. I don't know. It seems super uncalled for, as based on the stories, which, for me, it was kind of tough on the internet. But, you know, there's no true claim saying he was like a down and dirty, mean person. So it just felt kind of wrong, honestly. Going through their evidence, the tagline of their show speaks to how they want to use science to prove the paranormal. Um, to prove the paranormal is still for debate for sure. They don't really seem to deem any of their evidence as conclusive, which was very refreshing. But again, their tactics, it's not my thing. Definitely not my thing. All right, on to everyone's favorite new warrens. I mean, ghost paranormal investigators. You got Ghost Adventures. So, and this one, I can't believe it took them this long. But you're looking at about season 20, which season 20 was about 2019 time period. I had to use the search on Discovery Plus because when you look it up, according to Wikipedia or whatever, when you go through and you're looking through all the seasons and you're trying to find the episode, like it was not accurate at all. And it pissed me off and I was so irritated. But, anyways. All right. So it was considered a special, by the way. So I don't know if it was really part of like a certain season or anything. All right. So while Zach and them are interviewing the owner, Sharon, uh, she told them that if you show spirits respect, they will respect you. Now, there is a shaman, a woman named Sandy, who says there's more than 10 spirits and states that most of them are kind, but if they are disrespected, they will challenge you. Sandy offers proof as she felt something wet on a table and said it was when she was in there doing her own, I guess, investigation or something. Oh, where was I? Sorry. She offers proof by saying that she felt something wet on a table, said it was blood that was on her own arm, but couldn't find the source of the blood, and she did have pictures of it. So during the investigation, not the investigation, this is just kind of like before they do the big investigation. So Aaron feels heart palpitations during the initial investigation. He states that they come with respect, but then he also starts yelling his questions, saying that he's really charged up. Oh, this was Zach. I apologize. He states that they come with respect, but then he starts yelling his questions, stating that he's really charged up right now, and how he gets in his usual douche Baggins way. And then from there, you got Billy jumping the bandwagon, who I've never been a fan of at all when they brought him on as one of the more forefront guys once Nick left. They begin with the spirit box, and while there are different voice tones that come through, saying that it's like 10 different spirits, which is kind of eye rolling. You gotta love the fact that we're all black and everyone is claiming that they all feel like they've been tased at the same time and that it's just per the usual good for TV viewing. Initial investigation and already having these experiences is like really cringy now. And of course, for me, it makes it a good laugh. Of course, Zach goes down the whole there's a darker force here, acting like it's a light one, the usual panic tactic that the Warrens would use whenever they were doing their investigations way back when. And then stating that there's unknown crypts on the property, like in 2009 by a historian who was interviewed by Ghost Labs, stated that these crypts were here and you know, they looked exactly the same from 2009 to 2019. And the guys are just doing this for more drama for TV. Zach makes claims that the crypts have been desecrated and the bones have been scattered across the property, which, without actual factual evidence, this is one of the dumbest claims to make on national fucking television, because how do you know bones have been moved? Have they been put back? Have they been found everywhere? Like, it just irritated me. Okay. Um and then the night before the main investigation, all the guys deal with some sort of nightmare. Billy saying he's got like sleep paralysis, kind of like a sleep paralysis demon, and Zach adding, do you think it followed you home? Kind of thing. Aaron stating his dream was more like a horror house. I don't know. It's kind of given the same satanic panic that some other people used to do. So, I do know that I kind of sound harsh. Should I be this harsh? Should I be this critical? I don't know. I feel like I'm being really nice because my mouth turns into a mouth worse than a sailor when in a tizzy. So, just gotta roll with it. You gotta roll with it. Okay. So, all right. So here we go. Now that the lady they interview states that she has nightmares after visiting the house, demonic evil things wanting to attack her children in her dream. I know I have more on this show than Ghost Lab, but that's because if you think about it, Ghost Adventures usually dedicates a whole hour to one area. Ghost Lab did too. So I have more to say. I have more stuff to talk about. I'm also more critical because they've been on for like ever, it feels like. What, 2008? We're now in 2022. I mean, they've been on when I scrolled through Discovery Plus to find this freaking episode, 26 seasons, I think. Like, we're at 26. And not to say that, like, the early seasons were really good. And then it started to take that whole everything's demonic, everything is evil kind of turn. And it's just, at this point, it's more comical than anything. And it's also very sad because, there's still satanic panic around, right? And it's a really tired, played out fucking story. So, who knows? All right. Sorry. I was no, yeah, and they also get very inaccurate over the years, more so than they used to be. Like I said, stating that the bones on the property and those who come in, there's bones on the property that have been scattered around from desecrated crypts. And then saying that people who come into the property prior to, I guess, 1994, I don't know if there's still been vandalism happening after this lady and her husband, Sharon and her husband, have purchased the property. But to say that, like, satanic rituals have been happening and you have no proof, like, the shit gets old, like, really fucking old. It's kind of like Los Padrinos, which was also this year, all over again, oh, satanic, they were doing rituals, they were doing this. Not every location has a dark demonic story to it. Now, tragedy does happen, and some people and spirits, I believe, do get stuck and need help moving on to the other side, but not every spirit wants to manipulate investigators, especially these investigators, which, lo and behold, every freaking place they go to, it seems to happen. All right, so let's go down. Let's find the evidence. So, some of the evidence that they found: Zach hearing a horse and carriage, which, due to the facts, and I had to play this episode kind of slow so that I wasn't, I was in such a critical mindset that I had to make sure I wasn't just being a bitch, right? So, Zach hearing a horse and carriage, which, due to the fact that it's not even 12 a.m. or later, kind of tells me it could be an actual company riding people around. Given the fact that the history of the city, the fact that it's sold, it could be like Savannah and St. Augustine, Charleston, New York, where you got horse and carriage companies. I mean, and when you see the map of the place, I want to say the McPike Mansion kind of is not near some water, but like it's not too far off from like a really nice view of a river. Yeah. Anyways, they never bother to try and debunk it. So, oh, I heard a horse and carriage, and then that's it. And where did the horse and carriage come from? Like, that's the first time anyone's ever claimed that. Anyways, you got both Aaron and Billy saying that they're smelling a rotting corpse at the crypt, which, I mean, unless, how do you know it smells like that if you never had a career in that kind of area, I guess? Or, came across some dead bodies and sniff. I don't know. Like, if they would have said sulfur, okay, fine. All right. We can go that route. But a rotting corpse, God, it was just, ugh. Yeah. So anyway, so after that, the box gives them words like poltergeist, and I don't know. It's just not. Once again, I'm not a full believer in their evidence. So yeah. Um, they use an SLS camera stating there's a mother, father, and child figures caught on camera, which go figure. And I've learned now from some fabulous podcasts, some shows, and Tiki Tacky, the SLS isn't always the most accurate, and honestly, it could be anything that moved, making a figure appear. Billy has his left ear flicked and is affected, as like in every episode, he's kind of just like Zach. Aaron, before he heads up the stairs, states that he can't breathe and goes outside. He says he feels like he's being choked. Now, I like Aaron, but again, the dramatics of the show overshadow any experiences they may actually have on the show for me. Ooh, excuse me. Let's see. They send Aaron they send Aaron back in up the stairs after being affected, Zach's usual douchebaggy ways of, hey guys, let me give you Aaron as tribute. It's like the Hunger Games, but it's not for love, that's for sure. Take this drink of water. Okay. So Aaron, before he heads up the nope, hold on. Sorry. So like I said, they send Aaron after being affected, the usual douchebag move. Sends him on his own all the way up to the 3rd floor. So by 2019, I'm assuming the floors are in a little bit better repair, because when the Kling brothers were there, that was really fucking iffy. So anyways, Spirit Box states that someone is going to get hurt, in which on the 1st floor, Zach and Billy hear on the 2nd floor, so the empty floor in between, some hard movement happening. They state that there's a light anomaly while floating over the spirit box as it answers, but honestly, looks like dust floating. It's still an old house. It's still in disarray. It's still being repaired. The spirit box states he's here and old man, which, to be fair, I call my husband that, and we're only in our 30s, so this is up for debate of what's considered an old man. An old man. The guys venture into the cellar. Which, the only decent thing they did this entire fucking episode was debunk the bug that flew in front of them, and that was it. All right. Okay, so Zach feels called, obviously. Oh, I have this feeling. Something came over me. Feels called to do an experiment at the crypt, which honestly pisses me off, because it's someone's fucking grave and you just don't do that. You pay your respects. They're not there for you to do some bullshit experience to try and prove a point. Get some gifts, some flowers, some libations, whatever, but do not set a speaker box in it and do some bullshit and then say, oh, there's guttural growls coming from within, when you're in a fucking wooded area. And obviously, with a wooded area, say it with me, animals. Don't push your demonic bullshit here. So anyways, Zach comes bolting down the stairs because he's provoked a dark spirit, which turns out to be a bat. It was a fucking bat. Maybe it was Dracula. Who knows? But it was bad. To me, play stupid games and you win stupid prizes. And like I said, I'm being awfully harsh, but it's just they've done this so much, and it's one of those things where like I'm really over it. And especially after reading about the South End werewolf episode that I did, where I highlighted on the Warrens, this is the same kind of shit that gets like so far up under my skin. You know, a dark force is deceiving the living at the mansion, Zach states. Like, fuck off with it. You know? He's the first person to say it. And think about the other teams that have been there. And not one of them, not one other one, Ghost Lab didn't even do it. They didn't state the same as Zach, who went there looking for paranormal, you know. He states he goes looking for paranormal, but really he's just looking for shit and trying to call everything demonic, which is absolutely like, it's just bullshit. Get out of here. Get the fuck out of here. It's it's annoying. It's misinformation. It's just like creating a false sense of just bullshit. It's all bullshit. And yeah, that's so anyways, thanks for coming to my TED Talk about the ghost adventures and their bullshit. Well, anyways, just kidding. Sorry. But yeah. As I've always stated before, Ghost Adventures is really good for entertainment, but the amount of misinformation calling everything demonic is just outrageous. And it's giving me feelings and vibes of the Fraudrins or the Warrens. I mean, and it really just needs to stop. Like, you're out here still having, you should be proving paranormal exists, not proving you haven't really given the scientific factual data to really prove paranormal, and you've moved past paranormal straight into demonic. So what's next? What's your new tagline gonna be? Oh, here we are, we're gonna prove that demons really exist. Like, oh god, fuck off. you know this kind of stuff may sell, but at what cost? Like, it's doing a disservice to the history of these places, the history of these actual living people, these people who have passed on. And it's really doing a disservice to your paranormal community as a whole. And there's a reason why, when you read an article or look at a picture on the internet, it is people are relentless on how much it's fake or whatever because of shit like Zach Bagans and them have pushed. So yeah. Anyways, apologies for the small mini rants in between, or babbling basically. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, what I say about investigators and stories are my opinions only. I don't want to discredit others' encounters and experiences, but when seeing something that seems absolutely inaccurate or whatever, like, I gotta call the bullshit for how I see it. But anyways, I hope you all have a great weekend, and see you around next episode. Well, that concludes this episode of the Paranormal Misfits. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest, make sure you subscribe to this podcast on whichever platform you're listening to on. And give me a follow on Instagram at Paranormal Misfit. If you have your own spooky paranormal story you'd like to share, or want to hear about a particular lore, place, or whatnot, please feel free to drop me a DM in Instagram. And on that note, I will catch you all later at the next episode, my ghouls.